Picture this. The year is 480 BCE. You're standing at the mouth of a narrow mountain pass called Thermopylae, the Hot Gates. On one side, towering cliffs rise into the heavens. On the other, the sea glistens under the sun. Before you stretches a sight that would make even the bravest warrior's heart falter. The army of the Persian Empire, the most powerful force the ancient world has ever seen. Their banners stretch to the horizon, their soldiers countless, their purpose clear: conquer and destroy. And here you are, one of 300 Spartans, led by your king, Leonidas, standing firm in the face of certain death. This isn't just a battle. It's a stand for freedom, for your homeland, for everything you hold sacred. But how did we get here? What chain of events brought these two forces, one so vast it seemed invincible, the other so small it seemed doomed, into this fateful clash at Thermopylae? Let's step back and unravel this incredible story, one that has inspired warriors, poets, and dreamers for thousands of years. In the 5th century BCE, the Persian Empire was the superpower of its time. It was vast, stretching from the Mediterranean to India, encompassing countless cultures, languages, and religions. At its head was Xerxes, a king who saw himself not just as a ruler, but as a god among men. Xerxes had inherited the throne from his father, Darius, who had faced humiliation at the hands of the Greeks at the Battle of Marathon 10 years earlier. The Greeks, though small and fractured, had managed to repel a Persian invasion. Xerxes was determined not only to avenge his father, but to ensure that no one would ever dare challenge Persia again. To this end, Xerxes amassed an army the likes of which the world had never seen. Ancient historians like Herodotus claimed it numbered over 1 million soldiers, though modern estimates place it closer to 100,000 to 300,000, a staggering force nonetheless. This army included warriors from every corner of the empire, archers from Mesopotamia, cavalry from Central Asia, infantry from Egypt, and even war elephants from India. It was a true juggernaut, designed to crush anything in its path. As Xerxes prepared his invasion, the Greek city-states were anything but united. Greece was not a single nation, but a collection of fiercely independent city-states, each with its own government, military, and culture. Athens was a democracy, proud of its naval power and intellectual achievements. Sparta, on the other hand, was a militaristic oligarchy, ruled by a warrior elite who valued discipline and strength above all else. These city-states often fought among themselves, their rivalries running deep. But the looming Persian threat forced them to set aside their differences, at least temporarily. A council of Greek leaders met to decide how to respond. It was clear that Xerxes' army was too large to face head-on in open battle. They needed a plan, a way to delay the Persian advance and give themselves time to prepare. The decision was made to hold the Persians at Thermopylae, a narrow pass that would neutralize their numerical advantage. Thermopylae wasn't just a strategic location. It was a natural fortress. The pass was so narrow that only a small number of soldiers could fight side by side. This meant that a well-trained force could hold off a much larger army. And who better to lead this defense than the Spartans, the most feared warriors in all of Greece? Spartan society was unlike any other. From birth, every Spartan boy was molded into a soldier. If a newborn was deemed weak or sickly, he was abandoned to die. At age 7, boys were taken from their families and placed in the agage, a brutal training program that taught them to endure pain, hunger, and hardship without complaint. They learned to fight as a unit, to trust their comrades, and to value the phalanx above all else. By the time they reached adulthood, they were the deadliest fighters in the ancient world. Leading the Spartans at Thermopylae was King Leonidas, a man who embodied the Spartan ideal of duty and sacrifice. When the Greek allies decided to send a small force to hold Thermopylae, Leonidas handpicked 300 of his best warriors. These weren't just any soldiers. They were men with sons to carry on their names, ensuring that their sacrifice would not mean the end of their family lines. As the Spartan contingent marched to Thermopylae, they were joined by soldiers from other Greek city-states, bringing their total force to around 7,000. It was a tiny army compared to the Persian horde, but they had one advantage. They were fighting for their homeland, their freedom, and their way of life. When Xerxes arrived at Thermopylae, he expected the Greeks to surrender. After all, who in their right mind would stand against such overwhelming odds? But instead of surrendering, Leonidas and his men stood firm. According to legend, when a Persian envoy demanded that the Greeks lay down their weapons, Leonidas replied with 2 words, "Molon Labe, come and take them." The first day of battle began with a frontal assault by the Persian infantry. Wave after wave of soldiers charged into the narrow pass, only to be met by the impenetrable wall of Spartan shields. The Spartans fought in their famous phalanx formation, a tightly packed line of warriors with overlapping shields and spears thrusting forward in deadly unison. The Persians, lightly armored and unprepared for close combat, were slaughtered. By the end of the day, the pass was filled with Persian dead, and the Greeks had not lost their position. On the second day, Xerxes sent in his elite troops, the Immortals. These were the best of the Persian army, a force of 10,000 soldiers renowned for their skill and discipline. But even they couldn't break through the Spartan line. The narrow pass worked against them, neutralizing their numbers and forcing them into brutal hand-to-hand combat. Once again, the Greeks held their ground. But on the third day, disaster struck. A Greek traitor named Ephialtes revealed a secret path through the mountains to Xerxes. This path allowed the Persians to bypass the main pass and outflank the Greek defenders. When Leonidas learned of the betrayal, he knew the end was near. Leonidas made the decision to stay and fight, knowing it would mean his death. He dismissed most of the Greek allies, sending them home to prepare for the battles to come. Only his 300 Spartans, along with a small group of Thespians and Thebans, remained to make a final stand. The Spartans fought with unmatched ferocity, using every weapon at their disposal. When their spears broke, they used their swords. When their swords broke, they fought with their hands. They were overwhelmed, but they never surrendered. According to legend, Leonidas himself fell in the thick of the fighting, surrounded by his men. When the battle was over, the Persians had won, but their victory came at a heavy cost. Thousands of Persian soldiers lay dead, and Xerxes' army had been delayed long enough for the Greeks to regroup. In the months that followed, the Greek city-states would go on to win decisive victories at the battles of Salamis and Plataea, ultimately driving the Persians out of Greece. The sacrifice of the 300 Spartans at Thermopylae became a symbol of courage and resistance. Their story has been told and retold for thousands of years, inspiring generations to stand firm in the face of overwhelming odds. Their monument at Thermopylae bears a simple but powerful inscription: "Go tell the Spartans, stranger passing by, that here, obedient to their laws, we lie." The Spartans didn't just fight for themselves. They fought for freedom, for their way of life, and for the future of Greece. Their legacy reminds us that even the smallest force can make a difference when it fights for something greater than itself. What would you do in the face of such odds? Would you stand and fight as Leonidas and his 300 did? Let me know in the comments below.